Hi my dear children, welcome to our class 5th Science Chapter 7 Food Chain. Observe carefully children what will happen in this picture. What did you observe? In this picture, living things getting their food in a sequence. What it is called? The transfer of energy from one organism to another in a sequence is called a food chain. Today we are going to learn the topic is food chain. A food chain is a series of steps that shows how each living thing gets its food. Food chains move in one direction where a producer will be eaten by a primary consumer, a primary consumer eaten by a secondary consumer, and so on. For example, there are various food chains in nature. Corn is a producer. Corn is eaten by a rat. Rat is a primary consumer here. Rat is eaten by an owl. Owl is a secondary consumer. Carrots eaten by rabbit. Rabbit is eaten by a fox. Fox is eaten by a lion. Grass is eaten by a grasshopper. Grasshopper is eaten by a frog. The frog is eaten by a python. Python is eaten by an eagle. These are the various food chains in nature. Food chain also exists in water also. Such a food chain is called an aquatic or a marine food chain. An example of food chain. The grass is eaten by a grasshopper. The grasshopper is eaten by a frog. The frog is eaten by a snake. The snake is eaten by an eagle or a hawk. We can say that a food chain is all about who eats whom. For example, another example of food chain. We can say in another way also. Producers are eaten by primary consumers. Primary consumers are eaten by secondary consumers. Secondary consumers are eaten by tertiary consumers. Tertiary consumers are decomposed by decomposers. What is food chain? The transfer of energy from one organism to another organism in a sequence is called a food chain. For example, producers eaten by primary consumers eaten by secondary consumers eaten by tertiary consumers. Producers, plants are the examples of producers. Herbivores are the examples of primary consumer. Carnivores and omnivores are the examples of secondary consumers. Scavengers are the examples of tertiary consumers. Thank you, my dear children.